Welcome. It's exciting to have you join us. We'll wait just a second to allow everyone to get in and then we'll get going. All right, we don't want to miss a minute of time because we've got a great presenter tonight. Good afternoon, I'm Harmony Langford. I'm the USBE Coach of Coaches, and I'm excited to welcome you to this month's From the Science to the Classroom webinar with the amazing Dr. Terrie Noland. I have linked a PDF of her handouts in the chat, and I will put it in there a couple more times as additional folks join us. And I will also be sending out a link to the recording of today's presentation, as well as your certificate of attendance in a few days. If you have any questions for Terrie as she goes throughout her presentation tonight, please type them in the Q&A, and if we have time at the end, she'll answer them for us. I am thrilled to introduce to you Dr. Terrie Noland. For the past 28 years, Terrie has put her energy into leadership and literacy. First as a teacher and administrator, and currently as a national nonprofit literacy leader. Terrie coaches and mentors leaders about the urgent need to align all practices and resources to an evidence-based approach to literacy. Recognized as a national thought leader and an award-winning podcaster with a focus on building a community of literacy champions, Terrie shares her captivating stories, leadership principles, research, and best practices in literacy with audiences across the nation with humor and inspiration. She has extensive experience working with state departments, regional education service providers, and local LEAs to build the framework for evidence-based instruction that needs to be delivered with clear leadership principles. Terrie is a certified academic language practitioner with a PhD in literacy and educational leadership. She is Maxwell Leadership Certified and a member of the Maxwell President's Advisory Council. We are so grateful to have Terrie with us to share her expertise and inspiration with us today. So we'll turn the time over to her. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Harmony. I am so glad to be with all of you in Utah. I am in Texas, so just an hour ahead of you. So very, very privileged to be a part of this amazing series with all of you. So as we head into tonight, I am going to go in with some assumptions, okay? Now, I know assume-aside sometimes is not a very good thing. I say assume-aside, it's a made-up word, where you just kind of assume things that then really come back to bite you. But here's what I know about the work that is happening there with the Utah Department of Ed and what Harmony has been doing. My assumption is this, is that you are here because we want to see evidence-based, evidence-aligned practices around reading instruction being put into our schools. So that is my assumption going in. Harmony is shaking her head like, yep, that's what we're here for. So I'm making those assumptions. Now, do me a favor. I think I'll be able to see this. If you could, in the chat box, just do me a really quick, just tell me roles. I need to see roles because this is going to be really important for me as we talk about leadership tonight. Okay. So I would love to see here, just put in some quick roles for me. Are you a general educator, a specialist, or dyslexia therapist, principal? Tell me who you are.
Looks like we have some coming into the Q&A
Oh,
actually.
into the
So our
Q&A.
chat
Okay.
must not be working, but we have at least a kindergarten teacher, some
Okay.
coaches.
Oh, chat has been disabled. That's
Yeah,
what's
there we
going on.
go.
Okay.
District leaders, SPED and elementary curriculum coordinators, librarian, second grade, another kindergarten teacher, fourth grade K-3 literacy coach. librarian, Title I director, administrator, librarian supervisor. We've got a little bit of everything.
Everything. I love it. I love it. I've even seen principals in there. I saw a Spanish teacher in there as well. So that's good and amazing. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay, so tonight we are talking about lifting the leader within you. And just forgive me real quick as I do that little move right there and get us started for today. So, we are talking about lifting the leader within you. Now, I'm going to tell you really quickly about this journey that I've been on because I think it's critical because it mirrors the journey that so many of you have been on. And that is I am working in this work and nonprofit work and dyslexia and best practices for evidence-based instruction. One of the things that I kept looking around for was like, okay, I where's the leadership work? And so I led a preschool. Now, when I did that many years ago, I didn't know anything about reading instruction. First and foremost, I taught, then I led, and I didn't know anything about leading instruction. I knew a little smidge about leadership, but not enough. And now that I am more seasoned in my career, I was looking around for leadership and I couldn't find it. All I could find was task management. All I could find was school governance. All I could find was, these are, get trained on HR policies, get trained on things like that. And I just kept saying, where is the leadership content? And so in my PhD program, which is in literacy and educational leadership, I said, this is it. I'm about to get it. And I was wrong because what I got in my PhD program was the same thing: school governance, task management, this, policy, procedure. And I'm like, this isn't leadership. And I was seeking. And so that journey started many years ago. And I stepped outside of education to begin to understand leadership. So that's what you're getting a little dose of tonight. Okay. And so remember, I'm going in with some assumptions and assuming that we're all about advancing reading for our kids. Look at this quote from Lewis Carroll, Alice in Wonderland. Sometimes I believe 6 impossible things before breakfast. And I agree with Lewis Carroll. I really do, to an extent. Okay. And I'm going to tell you the extent. So I wake up every morning at 5:07. And some people have said to me, what? Why would you wake up at 5:07? What a really odd time. And I said, it's an odd time for a reason, because I am not going to do what other people do, because then I'll get what other people get. You see, I don't want to do the 5:15, 5:30, 6 o'clock, whatever it is at the top, the 15 mark or bottom of the hour, because that's what everybody does. See, leaders do things others are not willing to do. And so, Lewis Carroll, you better believe I believe 6 impossible things before breakfast, because I've been up a long time. My brain is already whirling and twirling. But here's where I disagree with our dear friend Lewis. And I say, sometimes I believe 6 possible things before breakfast. See, it's not impossible in my mind. This is growth mindset, Carol Dweck. This is saying I am a possibilist. I am someone that believes that we can have school transformation. I am someone that believes that everyone deserves to be led well, and our children need it even more. So today, this is what we're going to do. We're going to dive into things that we believe, and we're going to believe 6 things. We're going to believe that you are a leader, no matter what your role is. Believe that leadership begins with growth and learning. Believe in the directionality of leadership. This was one of the most life-changing principles that fell into my world and my thinking, that just changed everything about the way I thought about leadership. Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. That's a quote from John Maxwell. Buy-in is a myth. We're going to get there. And finally, we got to get over ourselves, because listen, friends, this work requires us to be able to accept the fact that we mess up and have a lot of humility in this process. So, first thing we're going to do is we are going to believe that you are a leader. And the moment that this realization happened for me was when I sat in front of this sweet face right here. Now, this sweet face right here is Braden. And remember, I'm a tutor. And so, tutoring children, listen, I know what it's like to sit in the glass castle and make decisions, but I also know the importance of getting down in the weeds of sitting across from a child to get into what it's like to teach a child to read. And so I do that because I learn more from children than anything I ever do inside of sitting in a glass castle. So sitting in front of Braden, and here we
Terrie,
are.
this
You can,
is this is
yeah.
Harmony. The slides aren't advancing for us.
Oh
So
my, oh
if
my
you can help us
goodness.
with that,
I am
I don't
so
know.
sorry. Okay, how about we do this and give it a go again?
Okay.
Okay,
They started advancing and then they stopped. So
and then they stopped. All right. So maybe if I put it on my other screen, how about this? You see my dear sweet friend Braden?
sure do. Thank
Okay, this
you.
Miss Braden. And so anyway, sitting across from Braden, you can see we're going over some CVC words here. And she looked up at me and she said, Miss Terrie, my confusion teacher doesn't tell me to do it that way. I was like, what? What did you just say? And she said, my confusion teacher doesn't tell me to do it this way. And it hit me. She meant inclusion teacher. But out of the mouths of babes, right? Because what we have been doing in our country is placing children at the center of confusion. When I sit in tier one instruction and I'm being taught these things that I know Braden was taught, oh, sweet baby girl, just guess at that word. Oh, here's some what I call light phonics. Oh, here's just some light instruction around it. Well, I taught you that on Monday. We, no repetition there. You see, and then we pull Braden out for intervention or come to me for tutoring. And you better believe that's confusing. And children are sitting at the center of confusion. And then we are saying to ourselves, well, our children, oh, well, they just don't know how to read. And you know what? Here's what I say about that. We don't have a literacy crisis. We have a leadership crisis. Because if we have leaders standing up and saying, I will not accept the fact that Braden sits at the center of confusion, I'm going to lead this work well. And I'm going to lead it with integrity and intent. And I'm going to lead it in such a way that says our children will be served in tier one instruction. And then they're going to get extra doses and hits of that good evidence based instruction if they need it in an intervention setting, in an RTI and MTSS process. See, this is where leadership needs to rise up, because when we have leadership rise up, I promise you, we're going to do what Joe Torgensen says, catch them before they fall. So this is my call to leaders to say, all right, it's our time. It's our time to stand up. John Maxwell says leadership is not about titles, positions, or flowcharts. It's about one life influencing another. Now, I don't know if you know John Maxwell, but this is the influencer that I went to, the thought leader I went to when I stepped outside of education and I leaned into his work. I am now a part of the Maxwell certified team of coaches. And John Maxwell is the foremost thought leader in our world on leadership. He's written more books on leadership than anybody else, totaling over 100 books on leadership. And so I'm like, okay, 100 books, I can get on board with learning a little bit. And I love this quote. See, leadership is not about necessarily what I do, it's about who I am. It's how I show up in these spaces. And when we believe that, then it changes the way that we lead this work. So I know the chat is disabled, but maybe you can put it in the questions. I want you to think of 3 words that come to mind when you think of leadership, and throw those into the or maybe if the chat is working now, or maybe it's not. Okay, go ahead and put it into the Q&A. 3 words that come to mind.
And Terry, we're stuck on Braden now.
Really?
Yes, I don't know what's going on, but I know you have this quote in your slides. Oh, look, now we have it.
Okay,
No,
how
that's
about
not the John
that?
Maxwell quote yet, though. Yeah,
All right, we're going to get this right, Harmony.
perfect.
And
I'll
there's
just
some.
keep bugging.
No, you keep bugging because we want it to. There we go. What are 3 words that come to mind? Thanks, friends, for being patient with us. There we go. All right. Look at some of these. I love the 3 words. Megan. Oh, you know what? Those are interesting word. It's difficult. There's no 2 days back to back for a leader that actually don't have a little bit of difficulty woven into them. Absolutely. Guide, encourage, model. I love these. Thanks so much. Vision, intention, clarity. Ingrid, you tapped into something. I'm going to come to it. All right, these are great quotes. Okay, now, Harmony, give me a thumbs up. You can solve the advancement. Okay, we're on track now, my friends. All right. So I have done this before in a setting where we did a word cloud, and I just want you to look at these words that popped up from a large crowd that was a part of this, and look at these words. I'm a little overwhelmed by words. I love words, and overwhelmed by the fact that, you know what does not show up here? Title does not show up here. Position does not show up here. See, those titles, positions, that doesn't define you as a leader. What defines you as a leader are these characteristics. You can inspire, you know how to build trust, you lead by example, you develop teams, you grow leaders. But the big one there in the center that Ingrid tapped into is knowledge. And you know how word clouds work. The more the word is put in, the bigger the word, and everything centers around that word, knowledge. You see, because leaders grow themselves first. The most difficult person to lead, I promise you, and this is true for everyone, is yourself. That's the most difficult person to lead. And so, if you are going to lead this work well, you got to grow yourself. So, you are at the center of any type of transformation that happens in literacy. And you're saying to yourself, okay, but wait, I'm a 4th grade teacher. You mean you're talking to me? Yeah, I'm talking to you. And you know why I'm talking to you? You're on this webinar. You have intentionality about learning and growing. You can lead. Oh, but I don't have any decision-making power. I got it. I got it. See, but the directionality of leadership is going to tell us that we can lead right from where we are. So the next thing we're going to believe is that leadership begins with growth and learning. It has to begin that way. John Wooden, coach of the UCLA basketball team, he has since passed, but he said this: it's what we learn after we know it all that matters. That's a really good quote, because so often we get, oh, well, I've got my bachelor's, my master's in reading instruction and curriculum and instruction, curriculum design. I've done all those things, and that is amazing. That's good, but that's not enough. You see, because science advances. Now, the science of reading has been around for decades. We know that. But you see the discrete understanding of the way that we need to prescribe, the way that we need to provide doses to our children, all of those things. We are advancing in the science. See, I've got to advance my knowledge. I've got to advance my understanding. We have to learn. Now, one of the books that John Maxwell has written is called The 15 Laws of Growth. And it's one of those books that I picked it up, read chapter 1, and I said, well, I got my money's worth out of chapter 1. I might as well just put the book down, even though I didn't. But in chapter 1 is this little chart. And I'm going to go over this because it is a really profound thing for us to understand. We all have growth gaps. And when I start to look at myself and realize what my growth gaps are, then I can start to work on myself. So let's go through these. And then I'm going to ask you in the chat box to pick one that you feel is your gap. Okay. The assumption gap. The assumption gap says, "Oh, I'm going to grow automatically. Yep, it'll just get done." No, growth has to be intentional. Knowledge gap. "Oh, I already know all that. I know, I know, absolutely, I know it." No, there's always more to learn. Just what I said. The timing gap. Now's not the right time. I was doing a presentation in California a couple weeks ago, and I went through this. And as I was leaving, a gal grabbed me as I walked out the door, and she said, "Well, you just spoke right to me." And I said, "Why?" She said, "Because I got asked to apply for a principalship." And I said, "Oh, it's not the right time." And she said, "You just stabbed me right in the heart." And she said she was going to apply for that principal job. Mistake gap. I don't want to make mistakes. That's saying my perfectionism is coming out. Perfection gap goes along right with it. I need the perfect plan first before I grow. And then the inspiration gap. Oh, I'm not inspired to do that right now. Comparison gap. This is the one in education. I think it gets us. I'm just not where others are. They're so far ahead of me. I feel so far.
It looks like she froze, and we'll hope she can come right back on in with us. So hang tight for just a minute, and I'm sure she'll try to come back in. And there you are.
And there, Harmony, I am telling you, I mean, we're going to get this right. I
We
promise.
are.
Thanks. Thank
This
you,
message
friends,
is
for
important. We'll get it.
we will get it right. We will get it right. Okay. All right, everyone. In the Q&A box, just put which one you feel like you might have the most struggle with. For me personally, it is a comparison gap. Yeah, I struggle with that a lot. So go ahead. Tell us what you think. Oh, see this capacity. I'm gonna tell a little quick story as everybody's putting this in: perfection, comparison, mistake. And Tammy is like, I got two of them. So a good friend of mine, she was teaching at Idaho Falls in Idaho, right next to you, and she asked the principals how many initiatives they had going. And then she asked the teachers separately. The principals said, "We have 5 initiatives going right now." And the teachers came up with 64 initiatives amongst them. Friends, there is a disconnect there, something going on. So the teachers are saying capacity, 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 and the leaders, if the building leaders were saying, "No, we just have 5." Ooh, see how these things can get us sometimes. So this it's really important for us to identify where our gaps are and lean in to the learning and growth. So that's where I'm going to jump in to some of the work I do with the transformative reading teacher group. And what we did is we've done some literacy leadership coursework for the state of Wisconsin with some of the new legislation that they have out there in Wisconsin about literacy leadership. And we decided, you know what? We do not believe that the science of reading is just the only science that leaders need to be attuned to. In fact, there's five sciences. And so when we lean into growth and learning, I'm just going to try to pique your brains a little bit to think about there's five different areas for you to start to lean into. All right. That first area, do you know that there is actually something called the neuroscience of leadership? Dr. Daniel Amen, he is a surgeon and he works on the brain. And he has developed what he's called the neuroscience of leadership, meaning in the frontal lobe where our decision making process happens. And when leaders possess greater functionality in the frontal lobe, they are better at these things that you see on the screen: people development, personal growth, organizational psychology, change management. And John himself has plenty of books about this. See, if we're going to get anything done that is sustainable over time, we got to start with leadership, understanding how I show up in the buildings, understand how I do not walkthroughs, not just what I'm looking for, but the fact of building trust, how to set a vision, cast that vision, and carry the vision. You see, a lot of times we put a vision on a piece of paper and then we turn into a plaque problem, and the plaque that sits on the wall in somebody's office, but the vision doesn't walk and talk. The vision has to walk and talk when we're literacy leaders. The next science is implementation science. I hope that a lot of the work that you are doing there involves implementation science, because this is big and it's getting bigger in our country. We've got a lot of conferences now tapping in to implementation science. It is about how we get things in place, how we get the curriculum in place, how we get the instructional support materials in place, how do we get instructional routines in place. But also, the work of Peter DeWitt says, what are we going to take away? That's that capacity gap. See, because when teachers believe there's 64 initiatives, nobody can execute that. Not at all. See, we got to think about what we are going to implement, de-implement. What are the ways that we build runways to get that to happen? Next, we've got to understand the science of teaching. And I can't say those words without, talking about the great Anita Archer and how we need to teach. This evidence-based instruction, closing gaps in upper elementary, middle school, high school. I've got to understand the instructional routines in which to get this work done. And of course, Anita Archer, direct instruction, Charles Hughes, the work that they have done there. Okay. Also, if I'm going to be working on how I teach, what about how kids learn? See, this is big when it comes to an MTS, our systems. Because for a child that is dyslexic, I don't just need one good, strong dose of instruction at the beginning of the day. I might need 2 or 3 hits of that good instruction throughout the course of the day. I need good sleep in order to get my brain organized and integrating information. This is the work of Stanislaus Dehaene. How we learn. The book Make It Stick is about how children learn, and it's going to dive into how we design our schedules to get this work to happen. And then finally, here we are, science of reading. See, I think what we have done is we've committed a suicide. Science of reading, bam, this is what we need to do. But then we didn't consider, well, what are we going to de-implement? How are we going to implement? Who's going to lead the work? How are they going to lead the work? How are we going to get our teachers trained? I mean, we got to set the stage in order for science of reading to take hold. Now, let me tell you what, I know so many of you are out there doing good stuff, good work, without a doubt. But if we don't lead this well, what we will get is some good progress, but then we might flatline, or once I leave, we've not developed and created sustainability. So as leaders, we grow. And this is just a look. Some of these books were on my other slide. My top books here, these are books that I lean into for leadership learning. I'm going to tell you what, if you haven't picked up Adam Grant's newest book, Hidden Potential, he's a literacy leader and he doesn't even know it, I promise, because he talks about literacy in this book left and right. It's a good one. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about Dr. Robert Cialdini here. These are not the only books on my bookshelf, not at all, but it's a good visual to say, listen, if we're going to be literacy leaders, I got to know the literacy stuff and I got to know the leadership work as well. And here's why, my friends, knowledge is always going to need to outpace curriculum. I get to look at a lot of curriculums. I know a lot of curriculum companies. I know the people that work in those companies. In fact, today, a dear friend of mine, a first grade teacher in New Jersey, texted me a curriculum that is on the market today with the Science of Reading sticker on it. And she sent me a screenshot of a page talking about how to use leveled text. Wait, I'm confused. I'm confused. You say you're science of reading, but then we're going to do this guided reading groups with these instructional strategies that are aligned to these level texts from a differing curriculum provider. No, see, curriculum companies can't keep up with printing materials, producing materials, training people. That's why our knowledge has to outpace curriculum always and forever. They can't get it from where they sit to where you sit to change the life of a child fast enough. That's why it's on me to do it, to learn and grow. All right. So that's my pitch to you about the need to grow and learn. I hope you develop, an understanding of, okay, I need to grow and learn every day. I'm going to listen to these podcasts. I'm going to get in this book club, whatever it is that you're going to design for yourself, how you're going to grow and learn. Now, listen, you're on this webinar. At the end of the day, on a Wednesday before Thanksgiving, you are the ones that hold the keys to the kingdom on growth and learning. Okay, believe in the directionality of leadership. Okay, I told you this is the thing that when I heard this taught to me, it really did change the way I think about leadership. All right, here we go. Remember, you are in the center. You are a leader. You can lead up. Let me tell you the story of Rebecca Brown. Rebecca Brown is someone that I have mentored for several years, and she is a fourth grade teacher. I saw a lot of fourth grade teachers here today. Fourth grade teacher in Gwinnett County, Georgia. Gwinnett County is the largest school district in Georgia. And she started growing, learning, leaning into the science of reading. Oh my goodness, this is the way we teach kids to read. This is the way we close skill gaps in fourth grade. But their curriculums didn't align to her newest knowledge. Their systems didn't support her teaching with the newest knowledge. Her supplemental resources didn't lift her kids either. And so here's what Rebecca did. She mustered the courage and she went and held a meeting with her principal. And she said, you know what, principal, I'm learning. And I'm realizing these things that I never knew before, that I wasn't taught in my pre-service program. And based on the research that I've done, the growing I've done, this is the way that we are going to change the lives of children. Can I do this in my fourth grade class? And the principal said, okay, Rebecca, yeah, I'm going to let you do it, which good on the principal, I'm telling you. I'll let you do it, Rebecca, but don't tell anybody you're doing it. Okay. No, I won't. So Rebecca started doing structured literacy lessons with her fourth graders to close skill gaps. She started, teaching building background knowledge and putting that in the foreground, and strategy instruction in the background, and all of these things that the science is telling us. And she got results. And at the end of the year, she went and told the principal, and the principal, and they looked at data and was like, "Oh, Rebecca, this is good stuff." And then the principal left, and she had to do the same thing with the new principal that came in the next year. Oh, yep. You see, Rebecca is leading up. That was a couple of years ago. This past spring, Rebecca texted me with the most beautiful text that said, "You'll never guess, but after doing this for 2 years, getting the results that I've gotten with two separate principals, my current principal has asked me, what can we do to scale this across the entire school?" Friends, that's leading up. She did it right from where she was in that fourth grade classroom, leading across. I saw many of you, your curriculum folks, your librarians, your support specialists, and even classroom teachers, grade level teachers. We can lead across. And see, when we lead across, we complete others. We don't compete with others. This is a leadership principle, because leadership often says, "Ooh, I gotta get better outcomes than you." Ooh, I've worked with a gal. She's in Mississippi, and there's a lot of competition with a kindergarten teacher that's been there a really long time, and she didn't want her crown to topple, because she this is what I've been doing for 30 years. I know how to do it. I know how to teach kids. And um, I advised Brittany. I said, "Listen, you're not going to go in and try to, push all of this new knowledge on her right away. You're going to complete her right away." And that's what she did. She went in and completed her. And now that teacher is leading the charge. She did it by relationship building. I'll tell you another story about Nelda Reyes. Nelda is a district instructional coach in San Marcos CISD in Texas. Nelda was a classroom teacher, dyslexia therapist, and then she got called up by the district to say, "Nelda, we want you to lead the implementation of this new core skills foundational curriculum, and we want you to lead the implementation." See, they knew the importance of implementation. Nelda called me and said, "Oh my goodness, I'm not ready for this." And I said, "Nelda, you are the only one that's ready for this. You're the one that has been leading large in your school and in your district. And you know why I know that? Because I've been working with you for the past several years, and you are the one that have made moves in this district. That's why you're being called up. I don't know if I can do this." She interviewed, she got the job, and now Nelda is doing the full implementation of a foundational skills program across San Marcos CISD. See, she was called up because her steady, strong, consistent leadership got noticed and recognized, and people had confidence in her that she knew what she was doing. The other directionality of leadership is leading down. Maybe you've got a position where you're leading down. And this is where Dr. Art Cavazos comes to mind for me. I'm going to tell you what, I could sit and listen to this man all day. I told him, I said, "You've got artisms left and right." And he would spit them out of his mouth. And you could tell why people really bought into him as the leader. You see, he led a literacy initiative in Harlingen CISD back in 2014. He got outside coaching. He knew he couldn't do it alone. He got a coach. He knew he didn't have the knowledge. He had the humility to say, "Oops, I don't know what it's like to lead literacy instruction. I got to get a coach." So he got a coach, and he led across the entire district by not only casting vision, but carrying vision. He got the high school band to come up with a little literacy ditty that they would play through the hallways of the elementary school. His bus drivers, he trained his bus drivers to come into the schools and sit with children so they could work on reading their decodable text so they could get miles on the page of practice. And the bus driver sat there so that they could give corrective feedback. They were trained in that corrective feedback to give. And so, see, look, we got bus drivers involved, the cafeteria involved. If you're a human being that can get involved, that's what Art Cavazos did. He led with trust, he led with humility, and he led by casting a vision. So I'm going to ask you what position in the Q&A again. Go ahead and say what positions are you in? Across, up, down. Maybe you're in multiple positions. Up and down. Yep. Julie, you're like the full circle. I'm leading all the way across. Yeah. Nice. Thanks, friends, for popping that. Oh my goodness, Rebecca. Rebecca, we got to applaud not only you, but applaud your leadership team for saying, I got to have the voice of the teacher, the practitioner, the scientist in the team, on the team. That is leadership. That is a leader move right there. That's big. Across. Yeah. Yeah, so once you recognize where you are, because the way that I lead in the different directions, because when I'm leading up, I got to make things easier for the person above me, like Rebecca did with raising test scores, and it made that principal look good. All right, moving on to our next belief, which is believe that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Leadership's not title, leadership's not position. You know, I know a lot of people that have gotten a title, but they don't have the experience. They don't have the miles on the car to prove what they can do in that role or title. Getting a role or title is amazing, but it doesn't make you a leader. See, leadership is about who I am. It is about how I show up. And so I want to share this little visual with you, and it comes from a great coach that is a mentor of mine, Roddy Galbraith. He is an expert communications coach, and he talked about this model that is really in line with the work of Dr. Robert Cialdini out of the University of Arizona on influence. And influence is about how I show up with coming from a place of ethics and morality to convince others of what we know to be true. And sometimes that's hard because everybody comes from their point of view of my experience, my background, what I think, what I know. And so all the icky stickiness of influence. And sometimes, as you know, literacy folks, we like to come in hot. Okay. And what I mean by that is like when we get fired up about literacy and structured literacy and explicit, direct, systematic teaching, we want to come in hot and say, this is the way we got to do it. And that's not the way to get the work done. So, the way to get the work done, let's go through this little model by Roddy. Every time that you interact with some new individual or you're bringing a new concept to somebody that you might already know, you're kind of on rocky ground. Okay. I don't know how they're going to respond. I don't know what they're going to say. Oh, and so you can't get to influence until you create a connection with them. In the world of literacy and the world of reading, we don't need to start with, look at the science of reading. I need you on board with this. No, both the model here, the work of Robert Cialdini says, nope, create a connection of Oh, hey, I noticed that you put on Facebook that you got a new cat. Tell me about your new cat. I see you love your new cat. Oh, I see you took your dogs on a walk. Oh, your son won the swimming meet. Oh my goodness, that's amazing. See, that's the type of connection we're talking about because that's where trust is built. Once I've got a connection, then I've got to establish credibility. Credibility that I know what I'm talking about. Credibility that I'm leaning on the expertise of others. So often, when I am trying to influence others around evidence based instruction, I'll say, oh my goodness, if you want to know a place to start, you got to start with Louisa Moats. Teaching reading is rocket science. See, I don't want to lean on my knowledge and expertise. I want to lean on somebody that is an icon in the space. And often, a lot of times, here's what we'll do. We'll say, oh my goodness, I'm trying to convince us to move in this curriculum or that direction or change our systems in this way. And here's the 7 articles and 3 books that support that. I'd love for you to take a look at those. Dr. Robert Cialdini says, nope, that's too much. Pick out one little article, circle one little paragraph, and put that on somebody's desk and say, I'd love to have a chat just about that little section right there. We don't have time to read 7 articles and 3 books just to have a conversation. See, it's at this point we move up into this resonance, this synergy together, and that's now where influence starts to take shape. See, this model, this mental model starts to anchor me in how we can move this work forward in swift ways. Okay, believe that buy in is a myth. Do you know how many times you've said it? I've said it. We've heard it. Others have heard it. Well, we just got to get the other folks to buy in. Well, leaders, buy in is a myth because buying in says that I'm over here saying you got to buy in to my way of thinking. You got to buy into what I'm bringing to you. And what people do is they show up with all of these defenses and they show up with all this ego. We all do. Me too. So it's not just others, it's all of us. We all show up with ego. Everything filters through our ego and our background experience. So this whole notion of buy-in, in this book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, we talk about the law of buy-in. And the law of buy-in, this quote, you buy into the leader before you buy into the vision. So if you've got a leader, a leadership team that says, bam, unanimous decision. We have just set ourselves up for a literacy plan going forward. And this is what we're doing. And this is how we're doing it. And you've not established connection and credibility and trust and relationship, all the things that leaders need to do, you're not going to get the work done. So you got to buy into the leader before you buy into that wonderful literacy plan. You got to walk the halls. I led a building. I spent 2 hours every morning walking around talking to my teachers. 2 hours. Greeted the parents, welcomed the children, went around to every room, ran errands, whatever I needed to do. Because I did that and solved a lot of problems doing that method. One night I had woken up pretty early. Well, early. It was the middle of the night. It was like 2 o'clock. You know how you wake up. And just started laying there. I was thinking about this concept of buy in, buy in, buy in. I love words. I teach children to read. And it hit me. Drop in an O in that word. See, if we want to advance literacy, if we want to get other people on board with this movement towards evidence-based instruction, curriculum, practices, systems that support it, We don't get them to buy in. I look at them and buoy them up. Let's move from a buy-in approach to a buoy up approach. And I am going to pour value into you. I am going to praise you. I am going to talk to you, build relationship with you, build connection with you. See, because that creates that connection and that bond that says, I am coming from this out of love. I am coming to this out of what is best for children. So let's move from a buy-in approach to a buoy up approach and get some things moving. All right, here's another thing that we're going to believe in. This is our last one. We got to get over ourselves. One of the, I wish I'd have known this when I was a young leader, because I led my school building when I was in my early 30s. Early 30s. I was young. I was young leading that building. And I thought I knew everything there was to know. I wish I would have, I wish the current me could go back to the past me and tell the past me to think about what the future me actually knows. And one of those things is get over yourself. So let's talk about that a minute. We're going to talk about a few things, okay? We're going to talk about I'm just. We're going to talk about perceptions of the rules and the courage over fear. This fella right here, you don't know who this fella is, but I promise you, you know his quote. And his quote hangs out in the atmosphere and it hovers over our nation. And I think it has brought such disrespect to what we do in our society and education. Those who can, do. Those who can't, teach. George Bernard Shaw. You see, George Bernard Shaw, I know he probably said this at a moment of inspiration, but this phrase has said, teachers, you're not good enough. You're not good enough to actually go out there and do anything. So you just teach. We got to bring honor and glory back to the teaching profession because teachers deserve it. Because teachers are in front of your children, my children. Teachers are the ones that are the true scientists of this work. And so if we're going to lead this work well, we have to get over ourselves. And here's some of the ways that we're going to do it. I was at a leadership conference in New York and getting ready to do a presentation, ran to the back of the room, and there was a gal back there, and I said, "Hey, I'm Terrie," and I said, "Who are you?" And she said, "Oh, I'm Kristen. I'm just a teacher." I wanted to shake her. Oh my goodness, I wanted to shake her. But what it did, it inspired me to go back to my hotel room and come up with some just. See, this is getting over ourselves. This is us saying, society, you don't get to say who I am. You don't get to say how I show up. You see, I'm justified in this work. I chose this job. And if I didn't choose it, this work chose me. And I am justified for what I do. Leading children, leading people, teaching children, connecting with our society. Just like that. Have you ever gotten a kid? I get lots of them that are instructional and curriculum casualties. The children that our curriculums didn't reach, that our instructional practices didn't reach. And the minute that I apply evidence-based instruction, just like that, bam, they're readers. You know who I'm talking about because that's happened to you too. Just the beginning. Just the beginning for some of these children. It is just the beginning. I got this sweet baby right now in first grade that cannot name her letters. And I see a future for her. I see a future for her where we're going to name those letters and we are going to learn to read. I got to get these kids. See, that's what leadership does. It says, I'm going to get them just in time. If you're in secondary school, you are just in time for some of these children. Just for fun. Trip, I couldn't get him to understand digraph AW. I worked on digraph AW, saw, couldn't get him. And one day it came up and I said, Trip, stand up. And boy, we made big motions, saw. I got to the end of the lesson and said, Trip, what is digraph AW? What is the sound? Miss Terrie, saw, oh, you're a genius. And I thought, Trip, I'm not a genius. If I'd have done that, stood up, made it fun a month ago, we wouldn't be where we are today. Okay. Stand up, make it fun, just for fun. See, we got to get over ourselves, believing what society has told us to believe, just wondering, what are you curious about? Hopefully, my 5 sciences slide made you wonder about something, lean into something. Just imagine that 95% of your children are readers. Just imagine what that building looks like, feels like, sounds like. Man, just imagine what your communities reap the benefits of that. See, when we're leaders, we get over ourselves. And this one, just because I love it, just a little growl, just a lot of grace. Because in education, we got to have just a little growl, but just a lot of grace. Grace for ourselves, grace for others. All right. Here's another way to get over ourselves is the rules. Oh my goodness, the rules just get us every time. And I understand, listen, there are legal requirements, IDEA, all of those things. But sometimes there are things in place where I hear, well, they are telling me I don't have time to close gaps in third, fourth, and fifth grade because I have to teach grade level instruction. They are telling me, and I'm like, who are they? Tell me more. Teaching children to read words is in service of achieving grade level standards. See, we're getting ourselves in this box of rules. This is my youngest son when he was in third grade, and he came home with the third grade market paper that said, we're going to have third grade market. Here's a list of the things that you could bring to sell in third grade market: pickles, stickers, popsicles, rocks, whatever it was. And I said, oh, we're going to make duct tape wallets. And he said, it's not on the list. I said, the list is a suggestion, my friend. We're going to make duct tape wallets. He sat under the kitchen table crying the whole time. Me and his sister made the duct tape wallets. And here we are at third grade market day, and he sold all of his wallets and made more money than anybody else. Why are we accepting these perceived rules? Let's get over ourselves and question, is this really a rule? If my kids can't read words, how am I supposed to get them to grade level standards? Let's do something about our schedule that closes gaps for these kids. All right. Here's another way to get over ourselves. Leadership is about courage as well. No matter what role you're in, remember, courage, courage. Courage is not the opposite of fear. I've got a good friend, Missy Purcell. She's actually featured on the 5th episode in the Sold a Story podcast by Emily Hanford. And I'm going to tell you what, Missy, she's conquered her fear because she wrote the letter that stood in front of the school board with her hands shaking and read the letter to the school board. She has a Facebook group about advocacy. You see, courage is saying, I am scared to death and I'm going to do it anyway. Or the teacher I talked to in Chicago public schools that said, I knew about teaching evidence-based instruction and I was scared I was going to lose my job when I brought it to the attention of my building leaders, but I did it anyway. See, courage is saying, I am scared to death and I'm going to show up. Courage is about creating significance in the life of a child. Braden, that sweet picture I showed you earlier, her mom, I'm no longer tutoring her. She's a reader. And her mom called me the other day and she said, you know what Braden told me? She said, I wish Miss Terrie could still tutor me because I feel better when I'm with her. Oh my goodness. Hurt my heart, right? Hurt my heart. But I will always know that I changed that child's life. I changed her life. Courage is a muscle. The more you work it, the better it gets, the bigger it gets. Courage to say, I don't know, but I have the humility as a leader to go find out and be curious. And courage inspires courage. When you're courageous, I promise other people are courageous. You see, this happened in my life. My daughter, in her senior year of college, did this internship at this little alligator rescue in Beaumont, Texas. Look at her with big techs. And people look at this picture like, oh my goodness, she was safe. I promise she was safe. It does not look like she is, but she was safe. And boy, she jumped in there with big text. This went viral around the world. My goodness. But see what it did for me? She jumped in there with big text. It gave me courage. I jumped in there with cuddles to feed cuddles. And I say all the time, I did this while my husband was up on the balcony holding my purse. So, yeah. But listen, friends, courage does inspire courage. So, as we wrap up tonight, Lewis, we're going to believe 6 possible things because we're possibilists and we're believers. And we believe that leadership is the way we're going to get this work done. Everyone deserves to be led well, and our children deserve it even more. Here is my phone number, my email as well. And I'm going to tell you what I encourage you reach out. I get so many texts from people that say, okay, I'm about to go to this meeting. I just needed a little bit of encouragement. And I will encourage you. You got a question about something? I am here to help and to serve you, because I truly believe that people like you that show up on a Wednesday night to learn about this work, you're the ones that are going to change the world. Thank you so much for being here. I'm sorry about the technical issues up front, but hopefully we got in a groove, and I just value each and every one of you.
Terrie, thank you so very much for everything you've shared that has been so inspiring and will guide us in our work to improve literacy outcomes for all of our Utah students. This has been a fantastic hour. Um, Everyone will be taking a break from our webinar series in December, but be sure to join us again on January 7th at 4 p.m. when Dr. Nell Thompson joins us to build our knowledge on the critical role oral language plays in learning to decode, its implications for reading instruction, and how we can apply these understandings to improve literacy outcomes in classrooms. You're already registered, so please be sure to join us. Again, I'll be sending out attendance certificates as well as the recording of Dr. Noland's presentation in a few days. Again, thank you so much, Dr. Noland, and everyone enjoy your evening. Thank you.